This podcast is a proud member of Pod Nation Media Network.
Flicker of reels, the shadows crawl. Curtains rise, a ghostly sprawl. The frames are whispers, the stories call. The tractors hum in a hollow tune. Moonlight cuts through a velvet gloom. Is it a dream or a real too soon? Step into the screen where the dark turns keen. Join you with the Cinephile, unseen. The tales twist and turn as the silent light burns. A world unknown where the shadows yearn.
Hello and welcome, listeners, to Journey with a Cinephile, a horror movie podcast, where we take a deep dive into the world of horror cinema, from the eerie classics to the latest spine-chilling releases. Join me as I explore the history, themes, and artistry of horror one film at a time. Whether you're a seasoned horror fan or just stepping into the shadows, this journey is for you. So dim the lights, embrace the fear, and let's talk horror. And let's do that on episode 346. I'm your tour guide of David Garrett Jr., and I am recording out of Columbus, Ohio. So for this episode here, it's going to be my Scouring Through the Sixes, number 9 of doing these. So the featured reviews here, the first one's going to be The Macabre Trunk from 1936. This is a horror film from Mexico, and I'm going to pair this up with Forbidden Fruits from 2026. The theme here of this double feature is actually going to be 90 years apart, where we have the toxic price of perfection, whether it's a husband's noble quest to cure his wife's cancer or a retail queen bee's performative feminist coven. That's going to be the kind of things here that are going to be looked at. Now, we also have mini reviews here of The Craft, Hold the Fort. That's a screener along with The Troll. And then I gave a rewatch of Dolly. And then I have a documentary here that I'm going to include of a cryptid, The Mothman Legacy. This is another one from Small Town Monsters and South Breedlove. And then I have 2 more episodes of 100 Years of Horror. So I don't think there's anything else I need to do here for this intro outside of saying thank you so much for listening. And I hope you enjoy coming on this journey with me.
Hello, this is Rue and Willow with the with Rue and Willow podcast. I'm excited you're here again. Always, I'm excited you're here. When I come to my podcast, we talk about sex. We talk about sexuality. We talk about better sex, erotica, all kinds of yummy stuff related to sex and sexuality. Get entertained, improve your intimacy, and get advice to harness your empowerment. You have the tools right in you. Just get the advice. Listen to my interviews on Fridays with experts, doctors, professors, personalities, people who are free and open and have great things to say. And on Tuesdays, I have erotic fiction. Find me on all the podcast apps. Come today. Don't forget to come today. Enjoy your body. Give yourself that amazing experience of orgasm where you can imagine how wonderful that will feel. All of those amazing hormones flooding your body, making you feel exhilarated, amazing, incredible, like never before. Reach for it, take it, baby. Make yourself come today. You have an amazing day. Love ya. Oh, fuck yeah. Bye-bye.
Listen, here's the truth. If it's not something you love to do, automation is mandatory. You didn't start your podcast to spend hours editing clips. You started it to create, connect, and grow your audience. But here's the problem. Every other platform works with video podcasts, and manual editing eats up your most valuable asset, your time. That's where Opus Clip changes everything. Upload your video, and Opus Clip will automatically find the gold nugget moments, auto-clip the captions for the best parts, perfect for TikTok, Reels, and Shorts. 1 hour-long episode becomes 10, 20, even 30 viral-ready clips in minutes. The tool even predicts each clip's viral potential, so you know exactly what to post. No more tenuous editing, no more wasted hours, just you staying in the place that you love to be, creating content that matters. Head to podnationopus.com for your free trial and get back to doing what you do best. Stop editing and start creating now.
And for my first mini review here is going to be The Craft from 1996. This is directed by Andrew Fleming, who also co-wrote this with Peter Filardi. This is starring Robin Tunney, Fairuza Balk, and Neve Campbell. This is a folk horror, supernatural, fantasy, teen drama, horror film that is from the United States. This is currently sitting on a 6.5 on IMDb and a 3.6 on Letterboxd, with our synopsis being: a newcomer to a Catholic prep high school falls in with a trio of outcast teenage girls who practice witchcraft. They soon conjure up various spells and curses against those who anger them. So I recall watching this one quite frequently on the movie channels during high school, as did my sister. Despite being younger than the characters and a male, I related to their struggles, though, in different ways. So my first critical review for this was for the podcast Under the Stairs 1990 Summer Challenge series. I am now revisiting this as a Scouring Through the Sixes rewatch. And I'm going to go ahead and start with the first thing I want to point out about this film is that it really feels like the 90s. I guess it's fitting that it came out right there in the middle of the decade. It's also interesting that it came out the same year as Scream, because we have two Scream alumni here of Neve Campbell and Skeet Ulrich, and their characters date in Scream. Not so much here, of course. So they both star in this one, though. I'm not sure if I saw this before or after, but the connection was made soon after. Now, where I'm going to start would be watching this film 30 plus years later. This one still holds up. A big aspect is the bullying in multiple forms. Sarah is bullied by Chris, who makes up a rumor that they had sex, Sarah being portrayed by Tunney, and Ulrich is portraying Chris. There were stories like this where people have killed themselves over rumors kind of in that same vein. Now, Bonnie is portrayed by Campbell. She is mostly due to being ignored, as she thinks she's ugly. Now, she has these scars on her back from being burned, and she's very self-conscious about it. We also have Nancy Downs, who's portrayed by Balk. She is bullied for being poor, and she's also just this outspoken outcast. You have Rochelle, who's portrayed by True. That'd be Rachel True, and she's a minority, and it's crazy how relevant these aspects are still to this day. So then there are these character shifts after gaining power, and it's a compelling element. Sarah remains stable until the climax, but Nancy becomes a power-hungry tyrant, eventually bullying a struggling Sarah, a common theme when victims gain authority. Bonnie's new confidence turns her into a mean girl, while only Rochelle kind of stays grounded here, actually. Feeling remorse for her wish against Laura, Lizzie, who is portrayed by Christine Taylor, now that's her bully. She ends up making this thing that if anybody messes with her, they will get cursed, and that's what happens. So this reinforces the theme of being careful what you wish for. And then going along with that, some more here is Sarah has this spell on Chris to make him love her. And I don't necessarily think she realizes the impact. His initial devotion starts out cute, but then it becomes stifling and dark after she agrees to dinner. Similarly, Nancy finds that wealth doesn't fulfill her. Now, another concept for this film is I love it being set in a Catholic high school. They don't play that up as much, but we never see any of the nuns pre-scolding the girls outside of them just talking in class. But I think that it's interesting setting for a coven. I definitely feel like this is aware of it and playing with that perversion of religion. So other themes would include magic initially serving as a shield before the group realizes its true power. Each girl navigates trauma. Sarah is battling depression and past suicide attempts. Nancy faces poverty in an abusive household. Rochelle endures racism and Bonnie struggles with physical insecurities. These uncontrollable hardships fuel a rejection of the patriarchy and emphasize female solidarity. However, this unity fractures into competition as Nancy resents Sarah's effortless natural talent compared to her own labored craft. So the acting effectively brings everything to life here as well, which I'm going to lead off here talking about the strong performances. Then Tunney captures her character's first aloofness and desire for belonging, rooted in past struggles and self-esteem issues. Bulk is excellent as this increasingly callous leader, while Campbell impressively navigates a dramatic character shift. True provides the real heart of the group, showing remorse as their vengeance against Laura escalates, and the notable other supporting cast members here would be Ulrich, Taylor, Breckenmeyer, Clifty Young. There's also Helen Shaver is in this one as well. There's a decent little cast. So concluding with filmmaking, the cinematography and framing effectively capture the setting, highlighting the contrast between Sarah's affluent new house and a similar lifestyles of Rochelle and Bonnie, leaving Nancy as the outlier. The effects remain solid despite early CGI. The heavy use of practical effects hold up up well, leading to a strong climactic showdown. While the 90s heavy soundtrack dates the film, my personal nostalgia for that era make it enjoyable regardless. So in conclusion, this is a compelling watch even decades later, anchored by its exploration of the relevant themes like bullying, trauma, and the corrupting nature of newfound power. The cast delivers strong performances that breathe life into these complex characters, while the film's distinct 90s aesthetic and effective balance of practical effects create a lasting impact. By blending a supernatural coming-of-age story with a cautionary tale about unchecked ambition, the movie continues to stand as a cult classic that effectively captures the struggles and solidarity of teenage outcasts. So my rating here, though, for The Craft, I have stayed pretty stead pat on this one and give this one an 8 out of 10. And then I got to check out a screener of Hold the Fort. This is from 2025, getting its wide release here in 2026. This is directed by William Bagley, who co-wrote this with Scott Hawkins. This is starring Chris Mayers, Levi Burdick, and Julian Smith. This is a comedy horror film that's from the United States. It is currently sitting on a 5.6 on IMDb. And a 3.0 on Letterboxd, with our synopsis being: after moving to the suburbs, a young couple find themselves trapped in an epic battle between their new HOA and an onslaught of monsters from hell. So this is the film that I got to see thanks to Justin Cook. He sent over a press release along with the opportunity to view the screener. And since I enjoy checking out independent cinema, especially when it's building up my end-of-year list, I agreed. Now, I did know a little bit from the synopsis ahead of seeing this, but not a whole lot from it, though, either. So I'm going to go ahead and start, though, let me delve into who our main characters are here a bit. So we have Lucas, portrayed by Mayers, and he is with Jenny, who is portrayed by Haley Leary. Now, they're the new couple that has moved into this area. The president of the HOA is Jerry, portrayed by Smith. And so what we end up getting here is... I had a lot of fun with this film. It's a horror comedy. It is absurd at times. Something else I need to bring up is that it feels like a video game. The backstory and the premise are good. I do think that this falls a bit short with the execution. My guess is that's more likely due to budgetary reasons. Again, this is one to shut off your brain though and roll with it. So now that it's set up, I love what they're doing here with playing with the expectations. My wife, Jamie, and I have lived in a condo and now a house that we have built are in an area where we have an HOA. There is the connotation about how they're pointless and just make things more difficult. I will say for our house that we pay a more reasonable amount than what we did in our condo. It's annoying to get approval for updating things. I bring this up because this is setting up how the concept of an HOA can be frustrating. There are good reasons for this one, and it includes survival. Then shifting over to the neighborhood residents, I want to note here that I typically prefer a balanced blend of comedy and horror. While this one leans more comedy, the characters are a highlight. We have Jerry is amusingly pleasant president with a sarcastic streak and a perfect grasp of the handbook. Then there's Ted, who's portrayed by Burdick, who is meaner contrast by demanding strict compliance, while his wife, Annette, who is portrayed by Michelle I. Lamb, feels more grounded. In contrast, we also have characters like Marcus, Leslie, now she's portrayed by Tordy Clark, and then there's also Mick Scruffy, who is portrayed by Hamid Reza Benjamin Thompson, and Marcus is portrayed by Luke Michael Williams. So we have these enjoyably over-the-top, quirky additions to the cast. I should then include here that our main couple as well. Lucas is someone who avoids giving all the information that is needed to Jenny. She's more particular, but we see that she gets accepted into the group faster. Lucas also isn't a manly man. He's resistant to helping the group. Part of it is fear and not understanding what is happening. There's a good hero arc for him. Jenny from the start is more resilient, and I appreciate this dynamic of the duo. Credit here to Mayers and Leary for their performances. Regarding the horror elements, the results are hit or miss, though generally positive. I appreciate the concept of a portal to hell and the conspiracy-like backstory of how the residents pass on the knowledge and the weapons needed for battle. However, the film sometimes focuses on the less compelling creatures rather than the more interesting ones, like the Stickman, who in this is portrayed by Oliver Kaseski. A darker tone would have made this experience more enjoyable for me. So this explores like the absurdity as well of suburbia, where a dark secret necessitates using HOA funds for like a weapons cache. It takes the gated community concept to a lethal extreme, portraying an isolated environment where no outside help is coming. Themes of conformity versus individuality highlight that community adherence is a matter of survival. Furthermore, the narrative peels back a mask of politeness to reveal the cruelty and ruthlessness required to endure when situations escalate. I'll then take us over to the acting performances. I've already given credit to our leads, Mayers and Leary. I will say again that they fit perfectly for the tone needed. The sarcasm from Jenny is appreciated. Smith is good in his role. What I like is that this outside knowledge makes us dislike him. How overly polite the character is just takes it to another level. Burdick is good in his role along with Thompson. Credit as well to Ashworth, and that's Mark Ashworth. He actually plays Herbert, who is the original person who was living here. Give credit to Clark, Lamb, Williams. Somebody I even necessarily brought up here would be Mabel, who is the wife to Herbert. She's portrayed by Devney Dixon. I thought she was solid in her role. The rest of the cast is kind of fit for what was needed. Regarding filmmaking, the cinematography and framing effectively capture the contrast between the idyllic suburbs and dark secrets revealed at night. While the supernatural battle scenes and practical effects are impressive, featuring a satisfying amount of blood, some creature designs deserve more screen time and the CGI is less consistent. Ultimately, the music and sound design appropriately complement the film's atmosphere. So in conclusion, this is an entertaining and absurd horror comedy that successfully satirizes the tropes of suburbia by blending the frustrations of HOA politics with supernatural survival. While the film faces some budget-related inconsistencies with CGI and creature screen time, it delivers on its promise, though, of strong performances, particularly from the leads, and a clever high-stakes premise for those looking to switch off and enjoy a bloody character-driven ride. It's a recommend for fans of independent genre cinema. So my rating here, then, for Hold the Fort, I rather enjoyed this and give it a 7 out of 10. And I do believe this is actually coming to VOD here soon. Then up next, I have a screener I got to check out of The Troll. This is from 2026. It is written, directed, and starring Brianna Lee. It also has Elena Aker and Katie Frame in it as well. So this is a thriller film according to Letterboxd and IMDb, but there are no ratings yet. This is from the United States on either of them yet, because this one, and I'll get into why in a second, but let me do the synopsis. A TikTok megastar spirals after one cruel comment, stalking her troll in a descent that blurs fame, obsession, and revenge. The reason here is I got to see this thanks to Kier from Strike Media. This one came out for its world premiere at Raindance Film Festival. So, like I said, listed as thriller. I do believe it goes fairly dark in the subject matter to make it horror adjacent. Other than knowing the title and what I've shared here, I did come into this one blind as well. So I'm going to go ahead and start with this one, is that we have a good cautionary tale. The internet has given people anonymity to post or say whatever they want. Now, what I like here is that I dub them keyboard warriors. A majority of these people would never say this to the other person's face. They aren't even as ruthless as they are online when you get them in person. It has made bullying and things of this nature worse. This concept makes for an interesting story about being careful what you say to, like, rude things to people. So now that's set up, let's kind of delve into our main character here. This is going to be Killa Bee, portrayed by Lee. I like the setup where we get to see her wake up. She's drawn to this box that's on top of her bureau. We don't get to see what it is until the end, like what's inside of it. But this is a recurring item that we see throughout. It is here that we get a montage of sorts, showing her that she's popular and successful as an influencer. We see the rigors of keeping up with that schedule. We also see that words do hurt, even successful people. Lee, who also wrote and directed this, does humanize Killa Bee, at least in the start. So let's transition over to the troll. This is a 17-year-old kid named Josh, who is portrayed by Greg Sadarkis, something like that, something along those lines. And so we're actually seeing consequences of his comments regarding Killa Bee's appearance, age, and talent. And while objectively harmless, the remarks are inappropriate, yet they shouldn't logically affect a star like Killa Bee. Learning about Josh's home life, defined by his parents' constant bickering, they also have some interesting things there. This explains his need for online control. I thought Sadarkis delivers a grounded, realistic performance for the most part in his role. Also kind of bring in here, his parents are Vince, portrayed by Matthew Ear. Now, he has a long rap sheet of domestic violence, and his mother is Jeanette, portrayed by Aker. Now, she's a recovering alcoholic, and she goes to, like, AA meetings, and Killa Bee actually starts to infiltrate things and do different stuff here to kind of disrupt things. So regarding genre, IMDb and Letterboxd classify this as thriller. While not everybody would label this as horror, I think the dark elements make it adjacent, at least for me. As Killa Bee infiltrates Josh's life, the terrifying reality of a digital footprint becomes clear. It serves as a potent cautionary tale. Even harmless online comments have consequences when tracked by somebody with an obsessive personality. The film also explores the cost of fame. We see Killa Bee's grueling schedule to maintain her status, though showing the consequences of her missed appointments should have been heightening the tension. The story examines the divide between true identity and an online persona, like a mask of performative sanity. Ultimately, it addresses cyberbullying and the digital violence that spirals into obsession, boundary violations, and revenge. So the acting performances are central to the film's success as well. Lee excels as the demented influencer, effectively balancing a public facade with a depravity that she reveals when alone. Sadarkis is generally solid. He lacks emotional depth, though, in some key moments, particularly when he's being confronted by Killa Bee. Acre and Ear provide a necessary emotional layer through their characters' struggles. And then we also, I would give credit here to Katie Frame. There is Richard Mark Jordan and Jake Lesh, and the supporting cast. They adequately fulfill the roles that are needed for, their positions here. Technically, the film is also well executed, with effective cinematography and framing that highlights duality between the imperfect real world and the surreal artificial atmosphere of Killa Bee's videos. While minimal special effects are used, the music and sound design are appropriate, including a charmingly cheesy music video. My only minor complaint is the runtime, although brief at about an hour, an additional 5 to 10 minutes focusing on Killa Bee's crumbling schedule could have heightened this tension. So in conclusion, this serves as a gripping and timely exploration of the dangers inherent in digital spaces, masterfully examining the intersection of online fame, cyberbullying, and the spiral into obsession. While the film features strong performances, particularly from writer-director Lee, and effective technical execution that underscores the dissonance between public personas and private reality, it leaves the viewer with a haunting cautionary tale about the real-world consequences of seemingly anonymous online cruelty. Despite a runtime that could have benefited from slightly more depth regarding the protagonist's professional decline, the film remains a compelling and thought-provoking thriller that forces us to reconsider the weight of our digital footprints. So my rating here for The Troll, I gave this one a 7 out of 10. I would recommend this, and I'm not sure what the kind of schedule is for release, but yeah, this one is now out there. Then the last feature I'm going to cover here before I get over to the other stuff is going to be Dolly from 2025. Written and directed by Rod Blackhurst. Now, he co-wrote this with Brandon Wevel. This stars Fabian Therese, Sean William Scott, and Max Lindsay. The genres are body, monster, B-horror. This is from the United States. Synopsis: a young woman is abducted by a monstrous figure intent on raising her as her own child. So the previous episode, if you'd like to hear a mini review, is going to be episode 332. So for ratings here, IMDb has it as a 5.0, Letterboxd a 2.3. I discovered this through the Dreadcast as it was one of the more highly anticipated releases. Poster kind of looked cool. It came out during the 2025 festival circuit. It's technically a Voyage to the Fives watch, but it's going to be on my 2026 end of year list. So I came in largely blind after only seeing a partial trailer at the Gateway Film Center, because once I realized it's horror, I stopped watching. The second watch confirms that it does hold up. So it's a nightmare told in 7 chapters. We have a young woman of Macy, portrayed by Therese, is on a hiking trip with her boyfriend of Chase, portrayed by Scott, as he plans to propose. So the conflict here is Macy is already grappling with fear of commitment and motherhood due to her own upbringing, as Chase does have a daughter. They get along swimmingly, though. And what ends up happening here is they stumble upon a bizarre forest funeral where there's like a pit of dolls, and they get abducted by Dolly, portrayed by Lindsay, a monstrous figure who takes Macy to raise her as her child. So we have what I really like is the gritty 1970s aesthetic and technical prowess. So the choice to shoot on 16mm provides a grainy, authentic look that perfectly invokes the era of its influence. And then the atmosphere it features a house that's fallen into disrepair in the middle of the woods, filled with antique toys and like rotary phones, creating a setting that feels isolated from time. Then for the effects, there's some brutal, cringe-inducing practical effects. There's one minor instance of noticeable CGI, but not another way you could do it, and it is what it is. So this does have some tributes to the masters. We have some Hicksploitation roots here. This feels like a cross between like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Friday the 13th Part 2. The setup is definitely that latter film, and this is taking a lot of direct homage from TCM. So Dolly is an icon here, is like a broken innocence, a figure akin to Leatherface. She is imposing, a silent threat hiding behind a ceramic doll mask. So this is deeply uncomfortable as it has an exploration of perverted maternity, nurture, and the loss of autonomy. So performances, and for me then, standout lead here is Therese. She's compelling, effectively portraying the grueling fight for survival and identity. I thought that Sean William Scott was solid here in his role, and then we also have Ethan Sluppy, who is portraying a character named Toby. Thought they're both solid for what was needed there. So despite some standard horror cliches and some eye-rolling character decisions, it's still a decent little Hicksploitation potential slash film. Don't have enough kills for it to fully go in there, but also kind of uncomfortable ordeal here to watch some of the things that they put the character through. So my rating, actually, I've bumped up half a rating here. I rather enjoyed Dolly the second time around again and give it a 7 out of 10. And this is on Shudder if you are curious. And I have a documentary here of the Mothman Legacy. This is from 2020. It is written and directed by Seth Breedlove, features Lyle Blackburn and Heather Mosier. So this is a documentary that, like I said, from the United States. This is a small town monsters documentary. This is currently set on a 5.2 on IMDb and a 3.1 on Letterboxd, with the synopsis here being a documentary about the Mothman phenomenon, a direct sequel to The Mothman of Point Pleasant from 2017. So this is another documentary that I decided to check out while I keep working through the filmography for Seth Breedlove. So I'll be honest, this was probably one of the more popular ones that I hadn't seen yet. A big portion of this is the widespread knowledge of the Mothman. Now, ahead of seeing this, my sister actually and my family relayed to me about some of the stuff they know from firsthand stuff, where my parents have gone to Point Pleasant with my sister. That's, in West Virginia. They have seen the places that are in this and have actually been covered in the documentary itself and everything. So my paternal grandfather grew up in the wider area, not necessarily exactly where this all went down. So much like other documentaries from Breedlove and the Small Town Monsters team, I love the amount of research that is done and provided. This one is a bit different from the others due to kind of covering a lot of like John Keel and writing in the book that he did. He was drawn there after the collapse of the Silver Bridge. There were sightings of the Mothman before that, and there's this dramatic increase leading up to that tragedy happening. What is interesting is that my father does believe they actually went over that bridge at one point in his life before it fell. So what makes this interesting is that we're hearing the eyewitness testimony from people in the area. There are experts here as well, like Mosier, who is able to talk more about the folklore and the past. I do think this adds a layer to everything that we get. Something I learned is that most of the sightings are concentrated in an area called the TNT region. This seems to be dubbed this due to the West Virginia Ordnance Works that was in there doing some stuff from the late 1966 to early 1967. I think there's like bunkers and stuff as well. Something that intrigues me quite a bit is the speculation as to what the Mothman could be. Is it something like a thunderbird from native Indian folklore? There are stories here that say that it has a call that you'd hear from like a movie for like a pterodactyl. Could it be an alien or an interdimensional being? Keel seemed to think that it was something of Earth. He referred to it as an ultra-terrestrial. And it's things like this and just the unknown that keep people searching for it. So this is a professionally made documentary. It's well-paced and engaging. While I believe there is a rational explanation for the sightings, I cannot refute any of the eyewitness claims. So the production quality is high, featuring helpful area footage, old maps and paintings. While the CGI is mediocre, it effectively visualizes the stories and keeps the presentation lively. I also appreciate that the film avoids becoming monotone with using these visuals alongside the interviews. So the film avoids becoming monotonous by using these visuals alongside the interviews. In conclusion, this is a standout entry in the Breedlove filmography that effectively captures the mystery and cultural impact of this urban legend. By skillfully blending compelling eyewitness testimony and expert folkloric insight, the documentary provides a comprehensive look at the phenomena centered around the TNT region. While the CGI elements may not perfectly match the high production value seen elsewhere in the film, the overall quality of research and visual presentation makes it an engaging watch for both skeptics and believers alike. So my rating here, then, for the Mothman Legacy, I gave this one a 7 out of 10 and would recommend it. I believe I watched this on Tubi. And my last mini review here is going to be for 2 more episodes of 100 Years of Horror. And the first episode, number 7, is going to be Bela Lugosi. So this is written by Ted Newsom. It is featuring Ralph Bellamy, Carol Borland, and John Carradine. So this is a look at the life and career of Lugosi, who is most famous for his performances as Dracula. So we'll actually learn some more stuff here. Is like he had a glorious stage career, did very well in film early on top of that. So played Dracula less than other icons, but his take is what everybody that imitates it, and that's something that Christopher Lee brings up because he does host this, of course. And so a co-star that he had said when he was younger he was very attractive and had charisma about him. Originally wanted, like Universal wanted Lon Chaney as Dracula, playing the more like dynamic vampire that he did in London After Midnight, but his passing away in 1930 opened everything up, as the original one that Lugosi's in came out in 31. So he was playing the role on the stage, and a production helped him win the role. Didn't realize he was married 5 times. He played off Boris, and they made many pictures together. I did know that. I've seen quite a bit of them. I don't know if I've seen all of them just yet, but I'm very close. But then soon after, Lugosi stopped working for Universal, and it's kind of a bummer that happened. It seems like there were some issues here with like typecasting, and Lugosi wanted to do a little bit more. But there's actually something that I'll come back to here a little bit for that one, but he did end up getting typecast. Bela Jr., it's kind of fun to hear him talk about his father. It actually is very heartwarming. His favorite role that he did get to play, though, was Igor, and this is where Universal brought him back. He was underpaid, but the actor-director there actually helped him increase his role and got him more money involved, so I was very happy to hear that. And then he did go to London and played in an Edgar Wallace story, Dark Eyes of London. That was actually Christopher Lee's first horror movie that he ever saw. We actually get to hear some stuff here. There's a publicity story claiming that for Black Friday about him being hypnotized and how it was against his will and everything. And then it does sound like that when Lugosi and Universal thought everything was going well there, Lon Chaney Jr. actually passed him over. So we see Universal screwed him over again. But everything I've heard, Lugosi was very professional, even when he was boozing and having his issue with some drugs. So the Body Snatcher actually reunited Lugosi and Karloff. And it sounds like Karloff was in it first, and he actually kind of pushed for his friend to be in it. Kind of a cool thing there. And then there's also something here is that Sarah Karloff, the daughter of Boris, she gets interviewed, and she actually, her father believed that the issues was that Bela's English wasn't that great, and that kind of hindered with some of those roles. But this is kind of definitely a good thing. I love to hear about this because Bela Lugosi is one of my most seen actors of all time, so actually getting into all that stuff was good stuff there. Gave this episode a 7 out of 10. And then oddly enough, episode number 8 is going to be Boris Karloff. This looks at the life and career of Boris Karloff, most famous for his performance as Frankenstein. So I've actually seen a feature-length documentary about him, so this was kind of a more condensed thing here. From everything, though, that we hear in this, sounds like he was a great guy. Got the position as the monster after Bela declined taking it on, as there was no speaking to it, so he didn't want to take on that role. So mostly just went after Karloff. Like, that's what his, like, when there would be trailers and, like, promotional stuff, and his name held weight. So they bring up here the Black Room. This is a bit of a gem where he actually gets to play two twin brothers, one of them maniacal, the other one very nice. It's kind of fun here to hear Hugh Hefner, who is a big Karloff fan, and his actually first magazine he published himself was called Shutter Magazine. It would actually feature a lot of stuff that Karloff did, like monsters and stuff like that. So it does sound like Karloff didn't get everything he wanted, as he was supposed to be in a film version of Arsenic and Old Lace, didn't get that one there. And we also have interviews again here by Sarah Karloff. Bela Jr. actually talks about stuff, and he actually brings up that it was just rumors about a rivalry between his father, and Boris. And I kind of do believe that. They both seem like they were very nice guys, and it just sounds like there was some stuff that might have came out, might have been misconstrued, everything like that. This also has an interview from Turhan Bey. Liked him in the movies that I've seen. And then some of the stuff that he did, he was very well adapted to television, so he did that for a bit. And it also seems like his training with like traveling acting troops could also be part of that. We get to see a clip from a fun show he did with Carol Burnett. Boris Karloff was also on the show Route 66 that had Peter Lorre, and then it also had Lon Chaney Jr. Hosted a show called Thriller, an anthology show. They actually used the Psycho House in the opening for that. It's kind of cool. He actually became bankable again the older that he got. He teamed up with Christopher Lee quite a few times, worked with Corman and Vincent Price, Peter Lorre, Hazel Court in The Raven. I didn't realize that was a comedy. I've not seen that one yet. He did follow it up with The Comedy of Terrors, which I have seen that one. We actually get an interview here from Richard Matheson talking about him. That was kind of cool. So his last of the trilogy that he did for Corman was The Terror. I've not seen this one yet, but I know it has a young Jack Nicholson. That one I believe is actually public domain because a lot of multi-packs have it. I just haven't got to watch in that yet. And I'm pretty sure that was pieced together in kind of an interesting way. Also had Dick Miller in that one. So the last film in monster makeup was a Lovecraftian adaptation of The Color Out of Space called Die Monster Die. It's actually on my list to watch here pretty soon. He was in Targets, which was good. I have seen that one. I rather like that one quite a bit. It's about like a sniper going around killing people. And then there was also something called Snake People that had, looks like some voodoo type stuff where it had Baron Samedi in it as well. So it's kind of funny is that he played Frankenstein, which was one of like the more gentler of the monsters, and sounds like Boris Karloff might have been truly the gentlest monster of all. So my rating here for this episode as well is going to be a 7 out of 10. So that's all I have here then for mini reviews. Let me go ahead then and get you over to the trailer of my first featured review.
ayúdame. Sí, doctor. Pero eso no. Perro traidor.
And for my first feature review here is going to be The Macabre Trunk. It goes by the original title of El Baul Macabro. This is from 1936, directed by Miguel Zacarias. This is written between Jorge M. Dada and Alejandro Galindo. This features Ramon Parida, Rene Cardona, and Manuel Noriega, while also having the likes here of Esther Fernandez, Ruperto Datiez, Carlos Lopez, Juanita Castro, Juan Garcia, Enrique Gonche, Victorio Blanco, Alejandro Galindo, and Luis Ladron de Huerva. So this is a Spanish horror mystery sci-fi film that is from Mexico, currently sitting on a 5.4 on IMDb and a 2-star over on Letterboxd, with the synopsis being: a crazed scientist tries to keep his terminally ill wife alive by transfusing her with the blood of young women he murders. So this is one I learned about when compiling my list of horror from 1936. I didn't realize that this was a foreign film until ensuring that I could find it online. I was able to find this on YouTube, but the issue was it was dubbed. The voices weren't great, but I was able to kind of get the gist of what the film was doing. Other than that, I did come into this one blind. So let's go ahead and do some feature notes on before I jump into the movie, and first start with our director here of Zacharias. He directed 49 motion pictures. This is the first that I've seen, only one he did in genre. There are 2 writers. First is going to be Galindo. He did this for 37 features. First that I've seen, only one in genre. Then his writing partner of Dada only did this for 2 works. First that I've seen, only one in horror. Then we shift to the cast. First is going to be Parida. He was in 32 movies, and I've seen 2. He was in 3 total horror films. I've seen this in La Llorona, aka The Crying Woman from 1933. So he's also in a lost film of The Devil of the Sea. This is actually different versions, and I have seen a different version of this one, and I actually believe I'll be watching another one here later in this year. Just kind of a funny thing there. So then a bit about Mexican cinema that we have here with some royalty of Cardona. This is the first of his 103 films that I've seen. He has done 7 in genre. Top 3 that I'm missing are going to be The Brainiac, Cyclone, and Guns and Guts. Last is going to be Noriega. He was in 89 works, and I've seen 4. 2 Monks isn't considered to be horror on Letterboxd, but it is on IMDb. So I've seen that along with the 3 other ones that are officially in genre with this, The Mystery of the Ghastly Face, and The Dead Speak. All right, for this movie here, though, we start in a shadowy Gothic basement. Dr. Maximiliano Reina, portrayed by Parita, laments about the slow, painful decline of his paralyzed wife, Virginia, portrayed by Castro. He is assisted by Mozubu, portrayed by Gonchi, who is a hunchback. Dr. Reina believes that the only way to save her is through a full blood transfusion. He will even kill if he needs to in order to save his love. We then shift over to a hospital. We get a great scene where somebody is in a black cape, fedora, and mask and is moving around the dark corridors. There's even a scene where Dr. Armando Del Valle, portrayed by Cardona, steps out for a cigarette and is almost attacked by the figure as he's lighting it. But he continues moving, out of harm's way, and the figure then knocks out a nurse, poses her like she's asleep. He then takes a woman out of one of the beds. We then see that Dr. Reina and Mozubu lift a heavy wooden travel trunk out of a vehicle and they dump it. So there's a beggar who's watching them. He has an eye patch. He's portrayed by Blanco. So we see this is actually a ruse where he pretends to only have like one eye. Then he also will pretend like sometimes that he's missing an arm or that he's missing a leg. This is actually a way so he can avoid being arrested by the police. So he actually watches what they're doing as they're leaving. He sneaks over, opens the trunk, and to his horror, it's filled with severed limbs. So this grisly crime is the headline of the newspapers. They are dubbing the crime as being done by the serial trunk killer. It's also bringing up here that there's mysterious disappearances of female hospital patients. The beggar looks at the newspaper, recognizing Dr. Reina, but because he cannot read, he doesn't know what his name is or like how to even point out that that's who the person is. So things then shift over to the hospital where there's buzz with the crime. Dr. Del Valle is working, recounting what has happened to him the previous night and what he saw. He is seeing Alicia, portrayed by Fernandez, who is the daughter to the hospital director, Dr. Monroe, who is portrayed by Noriega. It gets interesting when she collapses in pain. It turns out to be a severe acute case of appendicitis. So the situation then becomes complicated when Dr. Monroe doesn't want Dr. Del Valle to do the surgery, being too close to the case. He assigns Dr. Reina. So the problem there is that while the pre-surgery tests, it turns out she's a nearly perfect match to his wife. There's also reporters who get entangled as they want to break the story, seeing that this beggar could also break the case wide open. So him being homeless and ever changing his appearance adds another element here as well. So I'll tell you my recap and introduction to the character. Where I want to start is that I'd like to watch a better copy of this. The version I was on YouTube was rough. It was difficult to make out what the characters were doing, and it doesn't help that the dubbing was really bad. It's almost comical. I ended up needing to look up like a scene-by-scene breakdown to help confirm what I had actually saw and to figure out what character was doing what. That's not a positive for the film. So now that I have it set up, I'm going to go ahead and not harp anymore on the version I watched. I will then look at the story a bit more. I dig the setup. I like how this all centers around a hospital. The police and reporters have noticed a pattern as where these women are disappearing. There's a great line about how, like looking in the morgue, there aren't bodies of females there. That's quite dark if I'm going to be honest. Now something else that's in favor for the tension that is built would be around Dr. Reina. He's the best surgeon working here. What he's doing to save his wife is commendable, but in the end, what he's doing by hurting other people to help is something that doesn't justify it. There's something terrifying about somebody taking an oath to cure people and then doing the opposite. Making him a great character is good. As a father, there's this added element that Dr. Monroe wants to ensure that his daughter survives and assigns a surgeon who has these sinister plans. Parita was good at showing the duality of this character with the performance. So there's an element here that I was reading that kind of gets lost in translation, is the comedy. So something that was popular in Mexico from this era was like having these fast-paced, like comedic mysteries. We get that here with the local chaotic newspaper offices. A journalist scrambles for a scoop. The police are also bumbling with their incompetent theories. Since I was focused so much on making sure that I didn't miss anything, comedy was lost. And it's also kind of hard because the translations and everything might not work as well as it would in their native language. So the voices being as they are, it was already funny, so that also kind of, I think, contributes to it as well. So this also explores the perversion of science through Dr. Reina, whose his obsession actually transforms hubris into evil. A stark duality exists between the sterile hospital and the Gothic laboratory. His destructive love and class disconnect allow him to sacrifice patients to save his wife, ignoring the beggar witnessing his crimes. Finally, the film offers an unexpected redemption. So that'd be enough for the story. Let's go over to the acting performances. This is where the biggest hit with watching it with the dub. The voices don't add to the performances. Parita, though, has a good look for this good doctor who is actually like a villain. Cardona works as his counterpart who is determined to save his fiancée. Noriega works in his role as the hospital director. Fernandez's plight drives tension as she becomes a target. I also like Gonchi, Blanco, and the rest of the cast to round this out for what was needed. So then all that's left then, because there is no trivia that I could find, would be filmmaking aspects. This is another one that was difficult to judge due to the state of the print. Now, from what I could see, I did like the duality that is captured in this modern hospital versus gothic lab for Dr. Reyna. There isn't much in the way of effects, but it's also not that type of film either. I've already griped enough about the dubbing, so the music didn't stand out. It also doesn't hurt the overall product, though, either. So in conclusion, while the Macabre trunk offers significantly from the poor quality of the available print and the atrocious dubbing, the core narrative remains effective. The film succeeds in building genuine tension through the compelling, morally gray character of Dr. Reyna, the visually striking contrast between the sterile modern hospital and his dark gothic laboratory. Despite its technical flaws, it still stands as an interesting and dark piece of early Mexican horror cinema that is worth exploring for fans of the genre. So this is going to be a little bit lighter of a review. There's not a whole lot that I can kind of necessarily break down into it. It's more about driving the tension and everything as we kind of know a little bit more than what the characters do and everything like that. So what I'm going to go ahead, the Macabre trunk, I give this a 5.5 out of 10. Not going to do a spoiler section though, not anything I necessarily need to delve too much deeper into there. So let me go ahead then and get you over to the trailer of my second featured review.
You know, when I was a sales girl, not yet a saleswoman, I had a knack for making something out of nothing.
Head down, hoops on, bottoms up, pop the trunk.
Thank you. Oh my God, it's the Three Eden girls. They're like mall royalty.
Said I wouldn't dare cross over, watch me take this hoe over.
Do I know you? I don't think so. I just got here last week. What are you up to tonight?
Well, I was gonna go home and...
Like, what do you want to be up to tonight? Let's begin the induction. Goat's milk, thigh gaps, rose petals, bone caps, truffle oil, bitch slap, blood clots, juice press. Being a witch is being a sister, and we must protect our sisterhood by any means necessary. Rip out the weeds.
Like, please don't tell Apple about this.
Throw out the snakes.
Apple will not understand. Do you think Pumpkin is Apple's mini-me?
Is someone wearing the
Mojave body mist? Yeah. I'm wearing it.
We can't let history repeat itself.
Are we still best friends?
You know I don't believe in hierarchy in female relationships.
Can't you see that she is poison? You've been spying on me.
Are you high?
I don't know you.
It's all falling apart.
Where were you guys?
I know yesterday was whack, but it's really not my fault because I Googled it and Mercury was in retrograde. So there you go.
And for my second featured review here is going to be Forbidden Fruits from 2026, directed by Meredith Alloway, who also co-wrote this with Lily Houghton. And now this is starring Lily Reinhart, Lola Tung, and Victoria Padaretti. This is also featuring the likes here of Alexandria Shipp, Zach Thompson, Jordan Durante, Austin Ball, Jacqueline Byers, Harrison Byers, Emma Chamberlain, Gabrielle Union has a cameo here, Carolyn Vartanian, Aiden Almenza, David Pinard, Siddharth Sharma, Jeff Sinasak, Charlie Henry Larson, and Samantha Knapp. So this is a dark comedy, satire, witch horror comedy film that is from the United States. It is currently sitting on a 5.1 on IMDb and a 3.0 on Letterboxd, where our synopsis being. At a mall store, Apple leads a secret witch cult with co-workers Cherry and Fig. New hire Pumpkin questions their sisterhood, forcing them to confront inner darkness or meet violent ends. So Apple is going to be portrayed by Reinhardt, and then Cherry is going to be portrayed by Padaretti, and then Fig by Shipp, and then the new hire Pumpkin is Tung. So this is a film that I almost saw at the Gateway Film Center. If memory serves, the times just weren't lining up for life. So during that time, I wasn't also completely sure this was going to be a horror movie. Now, this is available on VOD, and it looks like it's coming to Shudder, which solidified me wanting to see this. So I ended up catching part of the trailer ahead of its theatrical run and everything like that. After realizing it was a genre film, I did stop watching, so I came to this one as blind as I could. And let's start with some feature notes here with our director of Alloway. This is her feature film debut. She's also done 2 shorts. Then as a writer, this is also her debut. She has also written a short film. So this is co-written with Houghton, making her debut in film as well. And it also appears that this is the first of her works to be adapted to the screen, since she wrote the play on top of that. And then it looks like here for the cast, we're going to start with Reinhardt. She's been in 25 movies and 4 shorts. This is the first of her things that I've seen. Has 3 total in genre. So Lilith came out back in 2011. She's attached to something called Bad Boy, which looks to be still in development. Then her co-star of Tung, she's been in 5 motion pictures and 1 short, first of her works that I've seen, first in genre. She's also attached to something in horror called The Young People. Then next is going to be Ped Reddy. She's been in 12 features and 11 shorts. I've seen her in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She's also been in The Haunting of Hill House and Bly Manor, both of the ones from Mike Flanagan for Netflix. She's also attached to When Darkness Loves Us. I'm also going to give credit here to 2 more, and next is going to be Ship, who's been in 34 films and 4 shorts. I've seen 6. Not horror, she was in Barbie, Deadpool 2, and X-Men Apocalypse. In horror, she has 5. I've seen This Now and Tragedy Girls. She's attached to something called White Elephant, Lost Planet, and The Autopsy of Albert Kemper. I've seen everything that is out, that has been released and everything, so the other 3 are still being worked on, developed, whatever. So since she's an actor that I like, I also wanted to bring up this cameo by Union. She's been in 55 movies and 2 shorts. I've seen 8 of her works. Not Horror is 10 Things I Hate About You. She's all that, and Bring It On. This is her first horror film, as she's attached to something called The Casket Girls that looks to also be in development here. Alright, so let's start with this movie though here and jump in as we get this odd scene. Apple is in her car when an older man pulls up next to her. He is staring and she makes some hand gestures towards him, so he starts to masturbate. She then tells him to roll his window down and she throws her coffee on him. This does set the tone for how odd this film is going to be going forward. It is from here that we see that Apple and her coworkers and friends are Cherry and Fig. Apple is the leader, Cherry is a bit ditzy. Apple is quite hard on her, constantly scolding her and demanding her to do different things differently. She reluctantly always agrees. Fig knows how to humor her and avoid the treatment that Cherry receives. As they walk through the mall where their employment is, they hit the food court. Their meals are given to them and it doesn't look like they have to pay. It is here that they meet the new girl, Pumpkin. So she's currently working at a pretzel shop, giving out samples. Apple is all but ignoring her. Fig is intrigued to talk to her. Cherry follows the lead of what Apple does. Fig sees potential though. Pumpkin then comes into the store later and she is given advice of what to do by Fig. And it is there that Apple sees her potential as well. She wants to initiate this new girl into their group. So the trio then give Pumpkin a lay of the mall where they work. Pumpkin just moved to the area. She goes through a trial shift, and that impresses enough to go through with the ritual to become part of their group. It is there that she questions if they're witches. They don't agree with that they are, but it doesn't fully debunk it though either. Apple is annoyed that the final say is from a manager of Sharon. So Pumpkin then starts to learn more about the members of the group and does what she can to get close to them. It is from here that they start to share secrets that they keep from Apple. This includes a former member of the Coven, Pickle, portrayed by Emma Chamberlain. It takes a turn that as everybody's routines unwind and Apple loses control. So let's leave my recap introduction of the character. I want to start is that I first didn't realize that this was based on a stage play. It's a fun nod to this that at the climax, Apple is wearing a shirt that shares the same name of the source material. And I'm actually going to go ahead and pull that trivia up real quick. So I was reading that earlier that it was near the end of the film, Reinhardt's character of Apple is wearing a t-shirt that has written on it, the front of it, in big, bold black letters. Of the woman came the beginning of sin, and through her all will die. This sentence is the precise name of the play written by Houghton, which this movie is based upon, as I was saying. So also while watching this has heavy vibes of The Craft. Both feature a trio of witches that one leans a little bit less in that aspect, but both trios are looking for their fourth. They have similar trajectories as things fall apart as well. So now that's set up, let me preface here that I do think some people will have issues with this film. It is following a group of women that are in their early 20s. How they talk and act is a bit outrageous. I also feel like a part of that's by design. They're all good looking. This gives them the ability to manipulate men around them. Apple wants things done a particular way. Fig and Cherry with different approaches to go along with it. Pumpkin to an extent knows how to navigate fitting in while also rocking the boat. I did find this group dynamic to be intriguing. So where I'm going to go ahead and shift would be the horror elements. It is light in the beginning. We then see that this trio might be witches. It is at the least performative with the ritual to initiate Pumpkin. The deeper they get ingrained into this group though, that's where the tension rises. Cherry has on her schedule that every Wednesday she has to go to therapy. Pumpkin notices that she does something else instead. Fig is hiding her relationship with Norman, portrayed by Sharma. And then Pumpkin is learning their secrets, and for good reason. This culminates in a stressful climax that does go wild. Then going along with it, I love the idea that it could appear that there is nothing supernatural happening. Things happen to Pickle, but that could just be her finally snapping. There are other things that the group point to that the Hex think that's what caused what's happening, when in reality there is a supernatural aspect potentially. What happens though at the climax makes me think that they either have the worst luck imaginable or other forces are uncertain their will. I do appreciate having these events play out for us like they do and letting us to decide. So a story element to also explore would be the performative sisterhood. Apple seems like she cares about Cherry to help her. In reality, she is causing her harm through bullying her mentally. Pumpkin points out that she doesn't normally fit in well with girls like this. She also isn't fully telling the truth, so we see bits of that when she's alone. Fig wants to live her life how she did, and kind of how, like, her mother, she brings up something interesting there where she's trying to do things differently than what her mother did, but she's kind of fallen in those same traps. So using this group to fit in is kind of what she's doing here. Apple is the one who's harboring some deep-seated issues and won't stop at anything to get her way. Additional themes include like the weaponized girlhood and performative feminism. Apple subverts like the shine theory to manipulate the group, creating a toxic dynamic. Shared trauma also connects the characters, as Apple, Cherry, and Pumpkin all have lost their fathers, with Cherry's backstory even deeper with the pain that she's gone through. Finally, the critiques the dark side here of consumerism and influencer culture. So moving to the performances, Reinhardt is excellent as Apple, portraying an arrogance that masks deep insecurities. Tung shines as her counterpart, Pumpkin, whose indifference to the group dynamics enable her to manipulate Cherry. Ship is solid, while Pedretti impresses as a ditzy Cherry, a character, burdened by unresolved trauma. Chamberlain and the rest of the supporting cast delivers some effective performances. And we also have a cameo, like I was saying, by Union that adds to the film. So the filmmaking elements embrace a timeless art house aesthetic consistent with the IFC-backed production. The cinematography and framing create a versatile atmosphere that blends 90s mall culture with 70s fashion and modern sensibilities. While visual effects are sparse, they are brutal when utilized, likely through a mix of practical and CGI techniques. The experience is further enhanced by effective sound design and a fitting musical score, in my opinion. So there's a little bit of trivia here. The mall where a majority of this film takes place is FC Sherwood Gardens, located in Etobicoke, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, not Dallas, Texas like the film. It is the exact same location in which the mall scenes in Mean Girls were filmed. And then the Free Eden store is fictional. It's based upon the boutique Free People, which has stores in malls across the United States and Canada. And like I kind of already brought up here earlier, this is Alloway's feature film directorial debut and the first produced feature film screenplay for both Alloway and Houghton. So there's actually an interesting little thing here about Pedretti, about how originally Alloway was avoiding to focus on her butt while she's wearing these skimpy tight shorts in the beginning. Pedretti assumed was because Alloway didn't want to objectify the character or something like that, but she flat out told the director that she's not putting on these tiny shorts to avoid shooting her butt, and her butt is normal, but it's not an athletic one. It's not really little. It jiggles. It has cellulite and stretch marks. These are literally quotes that she had said. So there's nothing innately wrong with that, but it's not necessarily represented in the media very much. So she was like, if I'm going to put these tight shorts on, you're going to show it. And after that conversation, she also kind of respected that Meredith was an incredible creator and she had a really strong vision. And when that was said and everything was understood, that is something that ends up being focused on actually in the movie, and credit for everybody involved. In conclusion, though, this offers a compelling, if occasionally polarizing, exploration of performative femininity, consumerism, and toxic power dynamics within a modern coven. Through its unique blend of art house aesthetics, sharp social commentary, and strong central performances, this effectively navigates the intersection of 90s mall culture and contemporary psychological horror. While it might challenge viewers with its intentionally abrasive characters and fluid supernatural elements, this ultimately succeeds as a thought-provoking genre piece that leaves the audience questioning the true nature of the events unfolding on screen. So my rating here for Forbidden Fruits, I actually gave this one an 8 out of 10. I rather enjoy this one and be one that I'm going to try to revisit before the end of the year. So I'm not going to do a spoiler section, don't necessarily need to do anything there, so let me go ahead then and get you over to one last break before I close out the show.
Pod Nation TV has you beamed up with Out of This World award-winning podcast, found exclusively on Pod Nation TV. Download Pod Nation TV for Roku and Fire TV. Pod Nation TV, Out of This World.
coffee.
And welcome back. So if you'd like to send me any sort of feedback, anything you want read on the show, or any screener requests, anything like that, you can send those to journeywithacinephile@gmail.com. If you'd like to read any of my written reviews or see any of the old past podcast episodes, all of that is being stored over at Journey with a Cinephile. That is my blog, and that's going to be horrorreview.webnode.com. If you'd like to follow me and become friends on Facebook, it's going to be David Garrett Jr. is my name over on there. There's going to be a link in the show notes. And then if you'd like to follow me on Twitter, it's going to be Buckeye from Mish. And then if you'd like to follow my Letterboxd page where I have all of my reviews, whether that's going to be horror or non-horror, that's going to be David OSU is my name on that. Instagram and Threads, I'm David OSU87. Over on my personal Instagram page, you might see some of my family stuff every now and then whenever I remember to post something. My wife is much better at it than I am. But then if you'd like to follow the Journey with a Cinephile Instagram, that's going to be Journey with a Cinephile, all one word. And then also direct you, if you'd like, to the Discord channel. That's going to be the Nightclub Discord, but I have a page over there. And there's also some other great pages of other shows and them kind of messing around and everything like that. Do highly recommend if you want to go ahead and check that out. And then the last thing I'll actually say here, if you would like to listen to the show a day early, this is always going to be streaming over there on the PodNation TV app. So I will have, once again, a link in the show notes for that if that is something that you're interested in. So, yeah, there's some great stuff here. There's some great shows on some of these other networks and stuff. I highly recommend checking them out. And for the next episode here, I've already actually watched one of the featured reviews. That's going to go ahead and be the 2026 one of Leviticus. Went to the Gateway Film Center on the opening Thursday to check that one out. And then I'm pairing this up with, I believe one of the names is Onaga. This one, there's a little bit of a discrepancy, is that IMDb and Letterboxd have 2 different years for this one. I mean, 1 year apart. So I'm going to end up watching this here, of course, then. It's 1936 watch there. And then The Frighteners is actually being shown, I believe, at the Gateway Film Center. I'm going to try to see if I can go over there and watch it. That one might get pushed around, not really sure, just because I need to figure out how that works into my schedule. So if you were listening last episode for the outro, you know that I was going to do The Bride then. I decided to kind of pivot because I was going out of town for a wedding. So I'm going to go ahead and throw The Bride on here since I'll have a little bit more time. I got some more screeners I need to check out. I also have some more horror films and whatnot and episodes to kind of cover here. So I don't think there's anything else I need to do for this outro outside of saying that wraps up this episode of Journey with a Cinephile, a horror movie podcast. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of horror cinema. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and follow along for more deep dives into the macabre. Until next time, keep watching horror, and remember, fear is just a frame away.
It had been a wonderful evening, and what I needed now to give it the perfect ending